Hey there, curious minds. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
We take complex ideas, interesting research, your notes, and distill them down, giving you that aha moment without all the overload.
Getting right to the core insight.
Exact. And today, we're plunging into a real classic. It feels just as relevant now as back in '71 when it came out. Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. You know, the subtitle says it all. A practical primer for realistic radicals.
Yeah, and it's really not just some historical curiosity. It's a manual, almost, for understanding power, how change happens.
And how to get things done.
Right, how to get things done in the world as it is, not the world we wish we had.
He wrote it partly for those young idealists back then, didn't he? The ones crying, burn the system down.
Exactly. He saw them urging violence, but he also saw they had, plenty of illusions about the way to change our world, as he put it. He wanted to offer something pragmatic.
A guide for those actually committed to the fight, committed to life.
Not just dreaming about it.
So our mission today is really to unpack Alinsky's core idea, his sometimes surprising takes on morality, communication, action.
And see how his rules might help you make sense of things.
Whether you're prepping for a meeting, trying to grasp a complex field, or, intensely curious.
Yeah, some of these ideas might really make you question how you thought change happened.
Okay, so let's dive in. Let's unpack Alinsky's view of reality.
He starts right in the prologue, painting this picture of a disillusioned young generation.
Yeah, rejecting their parents' materialism, seeing it lead to, tranquilizers, alcohol, high blood pressure, ulcers. Pretty bleak.
And having total contempt for leaders, institutions, even seeing activism turn into nihilistic bombing and murder.
That feeling he describes of being just inundated with a barrage of information and facts so overwhelming that the world has come to see him in utter bedlam.
That really lands today, doesn't it?
It really does. He points out the whole generation gap thing isn't new either.
Right. The older folks saying, when you get older, you'll understand. And the young people struggling, asking, what the hell is your thing? When they just say they want a better...
That utter bedlam. It feels so current. So if the world feels that chaotic, what's Alinsky fix? Is it just more fact?
No, not really. He argues it's not about some grand revelation. It's about practical rules for action.
Rules for radicals.
Exactly. He says, look, there are no rules for revolution any more than there are rules for love or rules for happiness, but there are rules for radical want to change their world.
These basic concepts that apply regardless of the time or place.
Yeah, these sort of universal political dynamics. And he gets really specific about communication failures.
Like attacking the flag or using terms like pig.
Things that just instantly turn off the very people you need alienating.
So what's the core advice then for an organizer trying to connect?
It's fundamental. You must communicate within the experience of his audience and, crucially, give full respect to the other's value.
Respect, even if you disagree.
Absolutely. And maybe surprisingly, he really emphasizes humor.
Humor in a radical's handbook.
Yeah. He says, through humor, much is accepted that would have been rejected if presented serious. He even laments, this is a sad and lonely generation. It laughs too.
Wow. So the core idea is being effective means being social, connecting.
Doing his thing is to do the social thing for and with people. That's his line.
So if your long hair or your language is getting in the way.
Shit it. He's blunt. Cut the hair if it hinders communication. Don't walk into an Orthodox Jewish community eating a ham sandwich.
Unless you want to fail, basically.
And unless I wanted to be rejected so I could have him to cop out. It's about pragmatism.
And that extends to working within the system, too.
He says, as an organizer, I start from where the world is, as it is. Not as I would like to change it. It is necessary to begin.
So revolution isn't just flipping a switch. It's a process.
A gradual process. He believes revolution needs reformation first. People need to feel so frustrated, so defeated, so lost, so futureless in the current.
That they're willing to let go of the past and gamble on.
Exactly. He quotes John Adams saying, the real American Revolution was in the hearts and minds of the people, that internal shift.
And he lived this pragmatism. That story from the '68 convention in Chicago is incredible.
Oh, yeah. When he was challenged, we fought, people voted against Vietnam, look at this mess, you still want us to work in the system.
His answer was just brutal honesty.
Yeah, totally. Basically, wail and feel sorry for yourselves, go psycho and start bombing, which helps the right, or
learn a lesson.
Go home, organize, build power, and at the next convention, you be the delegate. Work the system to change.
So that really puts the question to you, listening. Are you trying to burn it all down, or are you thinking strategically about how to change it inside?
And to do that effectively, Alinsky says you need to ditch this illusion that things exist in isolation.
The idea that everything's separate.
Right. He argues everything is functionally interrelated, always paired with its light and darkness, good and
life and death. He quotes Niels Bohr, the physicist.
When we have two difficulties, we can match them off against each other. Find the leverage in the duality.
It feels almost philosophical for such a practical book, and that provocative thought.
Oh, yeah. One man's positive is another man's negative. Calling something just positive or negative is the sign of a political illiterate.
Because things change, context shift. What was good becomes bad. What was radical becomes establishment.
He gives examples like the TVA or the CIO union. It's about seeing the whole paradoxical.
Okay, so if we zoom out, how does he map society itself? He has that Trinity idea, right?
Exact. Society, he says, is basically in three parts. The have, smallest group, got the power, money, security, luxury, their main goal.
Keep things the way they are. Freedom.
Freeze the status quo. Then you've got the have-nots.
The biggest group.
By far, often trapped by poverty, bad housing, poor health, ignorance, feeling powerless, despair. Their power.
Just their numbers.
Exactly. Rests only with their numbers, and they want to they're not asking for love, just breathing.
Okay, haves, have-nots, and the third group, the middle.
Right. Have a little, want mores. The middle class. Now, this is interesting. He says this is where the genesis of creativity often lies.
Producing big leaders of change.
Yeah.
Like Moses, Luther, Lenin.
Yeah, historically. But it also produces the do-nothings.
The ones who talk a good game about change.
Profess commitment to justice, equality, opportunity, but then they abstain from and discourage all effective action.
Your classic line being,
I agree with your ends, but not your. Alinsky quotes Edmund Burke here. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men.
Wow. So for you listening, it's like a challenge to locate yourself.
Yeah.
Which group do you fall into? Who are you trying to reach? Understanding this Trinity is pretty key to his whole strategy.
Absolutely. It sets the stage for how you actually act.
Okay, so we've got the worldview, the map of society, but then how do you actually do anything? This gets us into maybe his most controversial stuff, the ethics of means and end.
Yeah, this is where he really challenges conventional thinking. He basically says the question, does the end justify the means, is, well, meaningless on its own.
Actually, abstract.
Right. The only real question for him is, does this particular end justify this particular means? Specifics matter.
And his take on corruption is bracing.
It really is. To say that corrupt means corrupt the ends is to believe in the immaculate conception of ends and principles. He argues the real world, the real arena is corrupt and bloody.
Life is a corrupting process. He who fears correction fears life. That's intense.
It is. And he lays out these almost cynical rules about how ethics actually play out in the real world.
Is it purely cynical, though? Or just brutally realistic from his perspective?
I think he'd argue it's realism, a pragmatic imperative. Like his first rule, your concern for ethics goes down the more personally invested you are.
So when it's not your ox being gored.
Our morality overflow, puts it. And it also depends how far away you are from the actual fight. Distance breeds moral certainty.
That feels uncomfortably true about human nature. What else shifts our judgment?
Well, your political position, obviously. The judgment of the ethics of means is dependent upon the political position of those sitting in judgment.
One side's patriot is the other's terrorist.
Exact. And in war, he's blunt. The end justifies almost any means. He points to Churchill cozying up to Stalin, or Lincoln suspending habeas corpus, extreme measures for extreme ends.
So it's not just who you are, but also when you. Context is everything.
Absolute. Judgment must be made in the context of the time. You can't judge Sam Adams using an anti-Catholic slur in 1770 by today's standards, even if it makes us cringe now. It was effective then.
For Alinsky, consistency isn't the goal in politics.
Not at all. He says you have to change with the times or die. Elastic ethical standards.
And what about the options you have? Is that
hugely? Concern with ethics increases with the number of means available and vice versa. You've only got one shot, one tool.
That tool becomes morally justifiable by default.
Pretty much. He tells that story about the executive trying to blackmail him with a photo. Alinsky didn't use dirt on the other guy. Not because it was inherently wrong, but because he had better options.
Other means available. His standard was doing what is best for the most.
Right. And related to that, the less important the goal, the more you can navel-gaze about the ethics of how you get there.
And ultimately, winning matters a lot.
Generally, success or failure is a mighty determinant of ethics. History judges winners differently. There can be no such thing as a successful trader, for if one succeeds, he becomes a founding father.
And your opponents will always call your effective tactics unethical.
Right. Always. Like the British calling Francis Marion the swamp fox a criminal for his guerrilla tactic, because they work.
So the takeaway is, do what you can with what you have.
and clothe it with moral garments. Find the justification. The means available dictate the tactic. Passive resistance or active fight depends on your resource.
He even applies this to Gandhi, doesn't he? Suggesting passive resistance wasn't just principle, but pragmatism.
Yeah, he argues it was simply the only intelligent, realistic, expedient program Gandhi had. He even speculates that if Gandhi had had guns, he might well have used them.
And points out Nehru using force later, with Gandhi seemingly okay with it.
Right, and concludes passive resistance wouldn't have worked against, say, the Nazis. It requires a certain kind of opponent.
His main point seems to be that effective action always needs that passport of morality.
You have to frame it morally. Great leaders, he says, from Churchill to Lincoln, always invoked moral principles to cover naked self-interest.
So the challenge for you is, how do these rules make you rethink your own assumptions about morality in action? Are you judging based on your interests, your distance?
It's uncomfortable but powerful stuff.
And speaking of framing, Alinsky dives deep into the words we use. Terms like power, self-interest, compromise, conflict.
He argues these words have become tainted, seen as evil, loaded with negative baggage.
But he insists on using them anyway, not finding nicer synonyms.
Exactly. He rejects purifying synonyms because they dilute the meaning, dissolve the rawness, the bitterness, the anguish, the hate and love. He quotes Mark Twain.
The difference between lightning and the lightning bug.
Right. It's about facing reality, not detouring around it with soft.
Take power. He says it just means ability to act.
Yeah.
Mental, physical, moral ability. But it's seen as cruel, dishonest.
Yet he argues we've organized society using instruments of power precisely to get order, security, civilization itself. Every organization is ultimately about power.
What about self-interest? That's usually seen as just plain selfish, right?
Yeah, the opposite of altruism. But Alinsky calls altruism a classic American fairy. He says thinkers from Christ to Adam Smith recognize self-interest as a primary.
Like Smith's famous line about the butcher, brewer, and baker.
It is not from their benevolence, but from their regard of their own end that we get. Alinsky adds that self-interest isn't fixed, it shifts. And morality shifts along with it.
And we just wrap those real reasons in nicer words like freedom and justice.
Often, yes. We mask the self-interest.
Then there's compromise, often seen as weak, selling out.
But to Alinsky, the organizer, compromise is a key and beautiful word. It's making the deal, getting the win, even if partial.
He says a free society is ongoing conflict broken up by compromise.
Yeah, if he had to define a free society in one word, it's compromise. Without it, you have totalitarian.
And conflict itself, usually negative, right? Turn the other cheek, find consensus.
But Alinsky says, nope, conflict is the essential core of a free and open society. He calls its theme the harmony of dissonance, embracing disagreement.
Finally, ego. Not egotism, but
self-confidence. Unreserved confidence in one's ability to do what he believes. An organizer needs a massive ego to face life is action.
So again, it prompts you to think, how do you use these words? Are your definitions based on how things really work politically or just the cultural baggage they carry?
He wants us to strip them bare, basically.
Okay, so if you're going to be an organizer, how do you learn this stuff? He talks a lot about the education of an organizer. Communication seems absolutely central.
It is. Rule 1. Communicate only within the areas of experience of his audience. You have to know their...
Learn the local legends, the values, the way they talk.
And avoid jargon or rhetoric that's totally foreign to them.
He has that amazing story about eating with Mexican-American leaders.
Oh, yeah, where he just blurts out, my God, do you eat this stuff because you like it or because you have to? I think it's as lousy as the Jewish kosher crap I had to eat as a kid.
Which sounds incredibly rude.
But he says it worked. It was so refreshingly honest. It broke down barriers. They were used to outsiders faking enthusiasm. His honesty showed respect.
Meeting people where they are, authentic. He also had that $10 bill story.
Right, trying to give money away on the street. People were suspicious, thought it was a scam because it was outside of everyone's experience.
Like the guy trying to be St. Francis on the Bowery getting arrested.
Because, Alinsky says, actual Christianity is beyond the experience of most people who profess it. You cannot go outside connect.
So to persuade someone, you need to figure out their core value, their main goal.
Exactly. Like his example of Moses dealing with God.
Right. God's angry, wants to wipe out the Israelites.
And Moses doesn't appeal to mercy. He appeals to God's self-interest, God's prime value, wanting to be number one.
He argues destroying them would make God look bad to other nations, make his words seem worthless.
And the Lord was appeased. It's about finding the right lever within their value.
Which means the organizers shouldn't just tell people what to do.
No, definitely not. Use loaded questions, the Socratic. Guide them so they reach the conclusion themselves.
Builds respect, avoids resentment. Makes sense.
And building relationships is key. You can't just jump into sensitive topics like, say, birth control in a Catholic community without first establishing trust through common involvement.
He nails that disconnect with the campus activists telling poor people money won't bring happiness.
And getting the response, yeah, Let me be the judge of that one. I'll let you know after I get it. Total failure to communicate with it.
So, okay, communication is key, but then you need something to act on. How do you get people moving?
Alinsky says there's no such thing as a truly disorganized community. There's organized apathy or organized non-participation. The organizer's job is to stir things up.
Rub raw the resentments, fan the latent hostilities. Sounds pretty aggressive.
It is. Search out controversy and issue because, and this is crucial,
there can be no such thing as a non-controversial issue.
Right. If everyone agrees, there's no issue. Issues only exist where there's disagreement. So you have to find or create that conflict.
Turn a bad scene, a problem people feel helpless about, into a specific, actionable issue.
Something they can do something about. And sometimes, especially with demoralized groups, you might need to engineer a win.
The cinch fight idea.
Yeah, like that infant welfare society example in Chicago. He knew they'd restore the services if asked properly.
But he had the community storm the office anyway, make demands, refuse to be interrupted.
Exactly, to give them the feeling of winning through their own power, their own action. It built confidence for tougher fights later. It's about building agents.
Which brings us to the tactics themselves. That eyes, ears, nose analogy is so vivid.
Isn't it? If you've got big numbers, I show them off, parade them.
If your small ears make a huge racket, sound bigger than you are.
And if you're really tiny, knows well, stink up the place. Be disruptive in other ways.
He lays out those 13 rules for tactics. They're like a playbook for psychological jujitsu.
Absolutely. Rule 4 is a killer. Make the enemy live up to their own book of rules.
Because they almost never can, right? Like the church living up to Christianity.
Exactly. You can kill them with this. Then rule 5. Ridicule is man's most potent weapon.
Hard to counterattack, infuriates the opponent, makes them react bad.
He used that brilliantly against Kodak, saying their only contribution to race relations was color film. It wasn't an insult, it was laughter. That drove them nuts.
And rule 6, this one's fascinating. A good tactic is one that your people enjoy.
Yeah. If your people are not having a ball doing it, there is something very wrong with the tactic, which leads to some wild.
Like the baked beans symphony tactic.
Oh, classic Alinsky. Imagine 100 people fueled by baked beans attending a stuffy symphony concert.
The obvious consequence.
Utterly outside the established experience. Probably legal, technically,
Right.
And definitely something the participants could enjoy on some level, shitting on their oppressor, literally almost.
The audacity. It really shows how far he'd push things to be disruptive.
Totally. And it highlights rule 9. The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself.
Like the O'Hare shit in.
Exactly. The plan: occupy all the pay toilets at the world's busiest airport. Perfectly legal, but massive disruption.
But they never actually did it.
Nope, they just leaked the threat. And bam, within 48 hours, the city caved to their demand. The threat was enough.
He also talks about using negatives, like in Rule 11. If you push a negative hard and deep enough, it will break through into its counterside.
Like exploiting racism to pressure that slum landlord, busing black families to his white suburb.
The neighbors didn't care about the slums. They just wanted the black people gone, forcing the landlord's hand.
Using their racism against them. It's ethically tricky, but tactically effective in his view. Pushing the negative.
And the gumdrop tactic with the college students.
Restricted from everything else, but they could chew gum. So drop hundreds of chewed pieces on the walkway. Create chaos using the one thing they were allowed. Simple, effective, annoying.
Do what you can with what you have. And then there's Rule 13, targeting.
Crucial. Pick the target. Freeze it. Personalize. And polarize. Don't attack General Motors. Attack its president. Ice water in his veins, Sloan?
Make it personal. Makes it easier to mobilize people.
Because people act decisively when they feel all the angels are on one side and all the devils on the other. Polarization is a tool. And remember, the real action is in the enemy's reach. Keep pushing.
What about getting arrested? Most people avoid that, but Alinsky sees it as a tactic.
Sometimes, yes. Time in jail strengthens leader standing, creates martyrs, and practically it gives the organizer quiet time to think, strategize, philosophical sell.
He also stresses timing, right? Don't let tactics drag on.
Yeah, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Human attention is limited. Know when to declare victory and withdraw powerfully, like the Woodlawn City Hall, move in, leave strong.
And if something happens spontaneously, like an unplanned protest.
The organizer's job is to instantly develop the rationale. Give it meaning, purpose. Like John L. Lewis justifying the GM sit-down strikes with, the right to a man's job transcends the right of private property. Brilliant framing, created on the fly.
So thinking about your own life, your own challenges, what unexpected tactics, maybe even slightly stinky ones, could you use?
It opens up possibilities, doesn't it?
It really does, which leads to maybe the most forward-thinking tactic in the book, the tactic proxy.
Yeah, and he emphasizes tactics often aren't carefully planned. They emerge from accident, unpredictable reactions, necessity, and improvisation.
He said his policy was to have no policy. like Lincoln. History makes things look planned after the fact.
And the proxy idea came out of necessity. Fighting Kodak in Rochester. Street protests weren't enough against a global giant.
So Kodak reneged on a deal with ISHIT, the local black org.
And Alinsky needed a new angle. He started thinking about stockholders, proxies, initially just for harassment at meetings.
Asking universities, churches he spoke at for their proxies.
And the big break was the National Unitarian Convention voting to give their proxies to fight. Suddenly, it wasn't just noise, it was votes.
A political bank shot, he called it. Politicians noted. His slogan, keep your sermons, give us your proxy.
Love that. And the irony, he pointed out, churches that had traded their spiritual birthright for stocks could now go straight again by giving their proxy poor.
And this pressure actually worked. Kodak changed policies.
Dramatically, yet. Opened up hundreds of jobs, promoted black employees into better roles. The proxy threat was real.
Then he realized this could be bigger. Corporate jujitsu.
Exactly. Using proxies in one company to pressure another, playing on the self-interest and rivalries among the haves. They hate each other, he said. Exploit that.
That's clever. But the real point wasn't just corporate warfare, was it?
No, the real importance was showing a way for the middle class that have a little, want more is to organize.
People feeling helpless against huge corporations.
Proxies could be their tool, the mechanism by which these people can organize, get back into politics, reclaim some power.
He even saw this applying to the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, imagine executives refusing a Pentagon contract for nerve gas because thousands of stockholders would raise hell. It could democratize corporate America, shift foreign policy.
And university, using their own stock holdings for student activism.
A relevant college curriculum, turning spiritual slums into places of active change, studying and influencing the corporations they were investing.
The core idea, people power is the real objective. The proxies are simply a means to that end.
It's about mobilizing resources you might not think of as power.
So for you listening, what passive resources around you could be activated? How could you create people power in your own world?
It's a very creative way of thinking about leverage.
Looking ahead in the final part of the book, Alinsky turns his attention back to that middle class, particularly the lower middle class.
Yeah, and he paints a pretty worrying picture. Sees them as hurt, bitter, suspicious, feeling rejected.
Paying taxes while seeing the poor get welfare or college spots, feeling squeezed.
Making them ripe victims for demagogues like George Wallace or groups like the John Birch Society. Their fear and frustration turning into political paranoia.
He saw this as incredibly dangerous, didn't he?
As explosive as the race crisis at the time. He felt it could lead either towards fascism or Act Two of the American Revolution, a real crossroads.
And he doesn't hold back on the political pollution he saw, especially from the Pentagon.
Oh, he rips into it. The Vietnam War policies, the waste, the corruption, like the Lockheed plant location tied to a senator's district, Agnew praising Mendel Rivers.
Asking the basic question, who got the contract, what it cost, where the payoffs, follow the money.
And that nerve gas example is devastatingly simple.
If disposing it at sea is so safe, why not store it in the Pentagon basement or dump it near the president's vacation?
Exposing the hypocrisy and lack of personal accountability. Powerful rhetoric.
He concludes pretty pessimistically about the American dream.
Yeah. The great American dream that reached out to the stars has been lost to the stripes. We've forgotten our route, lost our way, become our brother's jailkeeper. Heavy stuff.
But he doesn't end there, does he? There's still a call to action.
Right. He says the cry of this second revolution is for meaning, purpose, a cause to live for and if need be die for.
And the organizer's job.
To bring hope and communicate the means or tactics whereby the people can feel that they have the power. And corporations need to see responsibility beyond just profit.
So wrapping this all up, it's striking how much of Alinsky's framework, written over 50 years ago, still resonates.
It really does. That insistence on seeing the world as it is, understanding self-interest, embracing paradox and conflict. It reminds you that real change is, well, it's messy.
Strategic, often counterintuitive.
Exactly.
And maybe the biggest takeaway for you listening is that undercurrent of optimism, despite the harsh real. That idea of life as a climb up a mountain with no top.
Happiness lies in the pursuit. The struggle itself has meaning.
And that Second American Revolution he talks about isn't just political, it's a revolution of the soul, a fight for meaning, which leaves us with a question.
When people feel they can no longer see the stars, how do we make them visible again?
And maybe a final thought for you to chew on. In your own life, what bad scene, what frustration could you maybe transform into a specific issue you could actually act on using some of this pragmatic thinking?
Applying that Alinsky lens to your own situation, powerful.
Well, we hope this deep dive into Rules for Radicals has given you some fresh perspectives, maybe some surprising ideas to consider.
Hope it sparks some thought.
Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep trying to make sense of it all.